Hey, I'm Justine from Employed to Serve and I do vocals.
I'm Sammy from Employed to Serve and I play guitar.
And we both also run Church Road Records.
Church Road Records started in 2017 when I put my back out after suffering an injury at my previous job as a gardener. I'd wanted for years to do a record label because I've been inspired by multiple indie labels over the years and thought it'd just be like the coolest thing to do it myself. So I thought I'd start it up, release my side projects, release a few like friends bands as well. So for the first 3 years, it was a sort of on and off passion project, and it got obviously a lot more involved after the demise of Holy Roar, and Justine came over and got involved as well.
So artists should consider working with labels these days because there's so much you have to do in terms of like the release cycle and like planning a project. Also, if you just started out, you don't know a lot of the people, and obviously it's like the classic saying like it's who you know in the music industry. So it definitely sort of like helps like with leg up kind of in like that sort of terms. Also, like bands tend to like, especially these days, have full-time jobs around it, so it's really hard to do your sort of like full-time job and then like come home, like do all the PR, make sure your timeline's correct, make sure your whole campaign is sorted for 6 months, and also just stuff they don't know about, like, you know, because we keep read up on everything like, you know, TikTok algorithms and all that boring shit, so like yeah, we just sort of do a lot in that kind of stuff.
I mean, yeah, it's been like learned from being employed to serve, really, hasn't it? Where we all had like, you know, you're working at a record label during the day, I was a gardener. You come home and you've got to go to band practice. You can't always be thinking about everything there is to do with, you know, your release.
Yeah.
And also as well, when we first started, we just didn't know it either, you know. Like Justine was saying, we had to learn it through releasing stuff through labels and them telling us about it, and you know,
watching children on YouTube tell me how to use TikTok.
Yeah, yeah.
That's so old. I think like expectation wise for artists, like they know the deal. They know the money has long since dried up since the age of the internet. They don't expect them private jets. Like yeah, I mean, they'll be happy with meal deal, hopefully.
Yeah.
I think like obviously when you get into the pop world and stuff, I'm sure there's still budgets, but like yeah, it's pretty barren.
That's what makes like, yeah, the metal scene and alternative music so much more enjoyable to work in, because everyone in it has got the passion for it. They're definitely like, I mean, if you're starting a grindcore or death metal band to make money, then you're very deluded, you know. So people are just genuinely stoked when like they get their first play on like Radio 1, or they get their first bit of coverage in like a, you know, print magazine, and that's really nice, you know what I mean? It's nice working with people that are just like stoked on, you know, those, you know, accomplishments.
Obviously, like I think like Spotify and streaming and stuff like that needs to sort of find a better way of doing their streaming stats and sort of like the way they do their payment systems, because I don't think it can sustain. Like the thing is, like, it will kind of almost implode unless they just become a back catalogue streaming platform, because there'll be no bands who will be able to afford to sort of tour, especially with things like gas prices rising, just like natural resources that make, you know, things like cotton, like which, you know, makes band t-shirts, the like things that they use to make vinyl is going up. It's all going up, but the artists like pay isn't. So you are going to get to this point where there is a breaking point where you're like, okay, like let's like reformat this, let's sort this out. We're like really transparent of how much it's helpful that when, you know, customers pick up vinyl and t-shirts, it not only supports the label, which means that we can then you know, find more of hopefully their favorite bands, and then also they are supporting the artists, like they're putting fuel directly into their vans, especially because like a way, especially like our independent label works, because like we can't we don't like advance sort of like things like recording and things like that. We sort of like, you know, caveat that with like better royalty splits and like more sort of like, you know, money goes to the band than in like more traditional deals.
And without like trying to project too much of our own personalities onto the label, I think it's fairly like obvious to the people who buy records from Church Road that we are huge music fans, and we're kind of like, even though we're releasing the music, we're kind of on the same page as them completely, you know what I mean? It's like you'll see us at shows all the time and you can come say hi. It's not like this like corporate entity of like you're just randomly giving them money and records are coming, you know, your way. It's like it is like a community where everyone shares, you know, the same passion and wants to see all the bands thrive.
I mean, that's like where social media comes in, really.
Yeah.
Like, you kind of, like, I hate this term, but you've almost become a music influencer. Like, when you're running, like, an independent record label. I think, like, there's some labels who, like, remain anonymous, even though they are smaller. But, like, with, like, labels that started in the past, like, 10 years, they tend to have, like, had quite a big entity on, you know, Instagram and stuff anyway. So in terms of like challenges that we face, I mean, have you got all day? Like it's, I mean, the fact that we started like full time during a pandemic is like laughable in itself. Like we had stuff go wrong. Like we ran out, like Europe ran out of cardboard, so we couldn't get vinyl mailers. Like
like a new thing each
stupid
week.
stuff like that. You know, or like, you know, the whole, like, the Royal Mail office got COVID once, and like we couldn't ship people's records, and just like all sorts of like, I mean, it was funny at the time because it was just so ridiculous. Like, there's no cardboard. I mean, like, yeah, like there's quite a few, but at the same time, I feel like because we're small, I think it's to our advantage because we can shrink and, you know, expand accordingly to like our situation, where it's sort of like long-standing record labels who are much bigger. They have way more employees. They have giant buildings in like the middle of London. They have to like pay rent for. They can't just suddenly like, you know, stop releasing for a while to save some money. There's no like option there. Whereas like smaller labels have that flexibility. So the sort of subscription format was something that I carried on over from when I used to work at Holy Raw. So we like being a label owner it's just impossible to sort of like have like normal income, like sort of guaranteed income, because sometimes a record can do really well for no reason, or sometimes there's records you're like, oh, it's going to sell loads, and it doesn't, and it's terrifying because like, well, got to pay for the pressing, like marketing, got to pay our wages. So this subscription format is perfect. Like it's guaranteed income, which is just invaluable for small businesses. And then also like you kind of build a community that way because they're your sort of ultra fans, and they're like they kind of almost do their sort of own like street team thing. Like I love them because they like brag about their like exclusive vinyl colors. So we give them their own color, we give them exclusives and stuff like that. And yeah, it's just been really nice, and like it's kind of nice that they trust us enough to sort of subscribe and like know that like our taste will sort of even translate into like that, hopefully their favorite albums. I think as well, like going back to sort of subscription models, it's really great because the thing is with the internet, it means that everyone can put their stuff online, which is brilliant because it's like accessible to anyone. However, there's a lot of noise as well, so it's quite nice if you're working a full-time job, you've got kids, or you're busy with school, and like you can just come home and there's like this one like label that you're like, oh, they know my taste. Like you can just sort of plug in and just listen to everything that they've been posting. It just sort of like worms it out basically.
Yeah, there's no better feeling as well than when you forgot like you've got something coming in the post and it lands on like your doormat and you're like, oh yeah, sweet, I forgot about this.
It's great.
Here's an obvious question. So why did he not put out ETS on Church Road?
So back when I was at Holy Raw, ETS for the first 2 albums and first EP was on Holy Raw, and I found it very hard to compartmentalize because I was very conscious of looking like I was favoriting my own band over other people's. It's like a huge conflict in interest. So yeah, I felt the best way was to like kind of like separate it, which like I really prefer. Like, and also you just feel a bit weird like plugging your own album. Like it's really good. Do you know what I mean? Like it's
So
just,
the opposite might happen as well. You'd be like so self-conscious of not wanting to like look like you're oversharing your own band, and then in return you might actually undershare it and kind of not promote it as much as you would want to. So yeah, it's definitely good to have that separation, and then it's neatly separated. Then it's like, okay, here's Church Road stuff, here's Employed to Serve stuff. There's like a big, you know, dividing line between
literally
the two.
like to the point where we have 2 different inboxes, like, you know, mail accounts, and it's just so nice to be like, right, now it's ETS time, and you can just put your different like hats on, and yeah, it's great. So working in the industry is like definitely changed how I conduct myself in a band. Like I kind of know what's needed, and like I kind of almost preempt things, and it makes everything a lot smoother. And like I feel like our campaigns are quite nicely oiled at this point. So yeah,
It helped massively when we moved like to Spine Farm as well, because obviously with Justine's knowledge, she like she was saying, she knew exactly what we had to have in place. Because I think there's obviously labels do a lot for bands, but there's still a lot of hard work that has to come from the band solely. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of people assume, oh, you signed to like someone like Spine Farm, and it's like, oh, you got it made. You just sit back and everything's taken care of by them. It's like the hard work starts there, and there's a lot of things on your end that you have to do. And with Justine's knowledge, that put us in like good stead to like hit the ground running and make sure we were staying on top of things.
How did you navigate then, with that in mind, the new direction for Conquering? Was that like, did you have to sell it to Spy Farm, or was it a different kind of conversation?
They're like really good at kind of letting artists just get on with what they're doing. I mean, obviously, if we did something completely curveball, they might be like, "Hey, I'm not sure about this jazz funk record you've done. Maybe we could, change that." But no, I mean, we explained it to him the way we were going, and we'd kind of been having that discussion since Eternal Forward Motion. Like we wanted to head in like a more straight up metallic kind of direction, and they backed it and were. Yeah, just like sounds good to us, and then send them demos. It sounds good to us. Just carry on as you are, which is cool. That's how you want it. You don't really want like a label interjecting unless it's like, it's valuable and it's not altering the art too much.
Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, I like to think you sign a band because you trust in what they're doing, you trust in their process. So why would you start trying to tamper with it?
Yeah,
I just said art. I hope I didn't come across too pompous and like interfere with the art. That is heavy metal.
My art is my children.
Yeah.
When I was doing the research, I put Conquering on in the car whilst I was picking my kid up, and she's 4.
Yeah.
And after the first song, she went, "Is that a monster?"
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, it is.